If you've walked on a beach, you've likely seen something called wrack. It can be smelly and gooey, but researchers at the Royal BC Museum think it's a treasure trove of unique creatures. On This Week in History, we'll introduce you to the team that goes beachcombing on a microscopic scale. They say wrack might not be romantic to many, but it's a complex connection between land and sea.
I'm the curator of entomology. I'm in charge of the insect collection here at the Royal BC Museum. One of the new things I've been looking at lately is wrack, which is basically anything that washes up on shore. And it can either be kind of dry and crusty, or it can be slimy, it can be pretty smelly, but while it's there, it's this buffet that's available. And what we're finding is it's a buffet only for very specific things that know how to use it. We found a lot of things that are only on the beaches, and even if you go 20 meters into the forest, it's a totally different set of insects. So when we look on the beach, we're finding other insects you don't find in the mountains, you don't find inland, and you certainly don't find anywhere else in Canada.
I study hydroids, which are animals related to corals and jellyfish, and they live on many surfaces, including on wrack. Wrack may look unappealing, but wrack is not garbage. Insects, for example, that depend on it for food and protection. So it is good practice, if you see wrack on the beach, to leave it alone. Wrack that washes up allows me to look at what's on it that was in the water, and when it's on the beach and it starts to decompose, then it takes on a different life.
Wrack is this way of getting things from the ocean onto the beach, and then there's insects that are only there, but then you'll have birds that'll eat the insects, and then all of a sudden you have ocean nutrients moving into the forest through this wrack stage. So we used to think of like the forest and the kelp forest are totally separate, but they're not. They're linked in ways that we're only starting to understand. People go to the beach to see, birds and, stuff in the water, maybe a seal, maybe an otter, but the beach is also neat because there's all the tiny stuff you don't see. So I love going to the beach. I'm just seeing sometimes smaller stuff than most people, but if they take a stop and look and maybe look under a log, then they'll see all these things they didn't even realize, which just adds to the beauty of the beach.
This Week in History, brought to you by the Royal BC Museum, bringing British Columbia's stories together.